Hello and welcome to the Bull and Specs podcast with Shane O'Connor and Adrian Lacey. This week we've got a fun-packed, about half an hour for you, when we'll be talking about some of the things we did this week, as well as some of the news stories we'll be talking about that grabbed our attention. But first off, sad news, Adrian, first of all, isn't it, from your perspective?
Yes, and a lot of fans of Sean Hughes, the comedian who's died at what I now think of as a youthful age, just 51, far too young.
Same age as me, mate. I've got to tell you.
Really?
Yeah,
Right.
I only just reading the story about it, I had no idea, and I thought that's how old I am now. That is frightening.
Yes, it's when you read obits, and at the bottom of the obit, it gives the dates, and you realise, hang on. Yeah. Yes, that's horribly close. But of course, there are many other reasons to mourn his passing. And I was lucky enough to meet him. Am I allowed to name drop? Hashtag name drop?
Yeah, we do. If you've never listened to the podcast before, you've had many and varied jobs. In fact, you've never kept one for more than 3 months, have you? But that's
well, I work on the basis you can't hit a moving target.
It's another story for another day. No, you have. I mean, you've worked in some amazing places with amazing people, and of course, we want to hear about it as well. But how did you end up working with Sean Hughes? Yeah,
well,
as well.
Yeah. Well, I can actually say I was on the same bill as Sean Hughes, except that's not true. I was on the same bill as John Hughes. It was so long ago, he was still using his real name. And what I haven't looked up is whether he'd already just won the Perrier Award, but it's within months of all that. It was in a short period where I deluded myself into thinking I could be a stand-up comedian, which, as listeners will quickly work out, was never going to happen. Anyway, you've got to work through your delusions, especially in your 20s, I think.
You've got some guts, you have, though. Mind you, I suppose, in your 20s you have, haven't you? You got some bravado on that.
I wouldn't call it bravado, I just call it ignorance, actually. You don't know what you can't do.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
It was a bit of a punk ethic. Not that I was ever going to be a punk, but it was, oh, well, he could do it, I could do it kind of thing. Or not so many females on the circuit by any means then, but...
You're right, though. You don't know what you can't do, but you soon found out, didn't you?
So, I soon found out. But for this very interesting moment, I was on the same bill as I said, John Hughes. And better than that, this is how glamorous it was. We went home on the bus together.
Oh, wow.
Or at least we went our separate ways at Euston. But this was a pub above Stoke Newington, which is North London.
See, I was going to ask you, because I've always wondered about this, when comedians are on the bill together, do you talk to each other? But, like, backstage, I was thinking, but if you're in a pub at Stoke Newington, there wouldn't have been a backstage, would there? I wouldn't have thought.
I don't remember there being anything that you could call a dressing room, nothing so fancy. No, it was, again, it comes back to the punk ethic. And actually, I've, for a rival podcast I've interviewed Kevin Day. And he's talked about this, and he almost thinks there's something sort of shaman-like, or almost a bit, or like witchcraft or something. How the spirit of punk, because these pubs were putting on punk bands, and then punk died, and they thought it was a fantastic gift when alternative comedy, as it was called then. We're talking mid to late 80s at this stage. We're 87 that I met John Hughes. They were very glad, the pubs, obviously, to have something to put in place of.
Wasn't this about the time that they used to have perforence poetry as well? Wasn't that? Because Phil Jupitus was Porky the Poet.
Yeah, I was a frequenter of gigs like that, and I even remember some of the gags as well.
Go on.
Well, I mean, since we were talking about Porky the Poet. This is how edgy and lefty it was. You won't laugh because it's not funny, but it didn't have to be. It was about being right on politically. So Porky the Poet, or Phil Jupitus, as he then later became professionally, he's miming sort of through reading a paper, looking at the TV. Oh, what's on tonight then? So this is part of his act. And he said, oh, we've got, I see there's, and of course Thatcher was on the throne at that stage.
Yeah.
Would mean a lot to people of a certain age, certainly in the UK. He said, oh, I see we've got a party political broadcast on behalf of the Conservative Party, otherwise known as Newsnight. And that's how it was. You
That,
didn't
that,
laugh. I told you.
no, but that was. In fairness, that was quite funny. There was an awful lot that wasn't very funny at all. I'm thinking of some of the people would like Craig Charles would do some really heavy, serious stuff. It wasn't funny at all, was it? That was there or thereabouts. That was okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's when Robert Elms comes on and does Wordsworth. That's when you know it's time to go to the bar, isn't it? I guess.
Anyway, I remember Sean Hughes' first line.
Sorry, do you know Robert Elms' solicitor or something? Or do you know his?
No, sorry, should I picked up on that? Sorry, I don't know.
I thought you knew his lawyers then for a minute, the way you went. Anyway, moving on.
No, sorry, I should say I've been up since 3 this morning on nefarious broadcasting activities. So, if I miss stuff like that, put it down to sheer lack of processing power between my ears. Anyway, so I was going to say, I remember Sean's first line. And again, I mean, all these things need a bit of context, especially for our younger listeners, of whom we hope to have many, don't we, Grandad?
Just any will do.
His opening line was, "I'm sick and tired of people mistaking me. For the last time, I am not Nana Muscuri." And where do you go with that? But
and did that get a laugh? Did it?
It did get a laugh. Wow. But of course, we're talking 30 years ago, 1987, where more people would have known who Nana Muscuri was. Footnote for younger people: a Greek singer of a certain popular bent, female, as people might guess from her name anyway.
Yeah.
The point was, it was just so surreal, just so out there. That you laugh because you're, again, I talk about lack of processing power, but your brain can't hold the idea that he thinks he looks like this Greek female singer
with very very sort of small glasses and a caftan kind of dress that she was used to wear, didn't she? Yeah,
cool in the caftan.
I kind of, it's weird because I felt I'd kind of missed out when they announced it. The latest thing, I didn't watch Buzzcocks. I wasn't really a big fan of that, which he was one of the team captains for a while, wasn't he, I think?
Yeah.
And I didn't, obviously I'd never met him or anything like that. And the only thing that I kind of really knew, the only way that he sort of invaded I knew of him obviously, but I saw the stuff that he did at Coronation Street.
Right, now I never saw him on that, so you can enlighten me.
And his acting was bloody brilliant. I've got to be honest with you. Yeah, I thought he was fabulous. He was a really believable character. He didn't just play himself, which is very often the case. If somebody's known for doing something else, they'll go, I can coast it, and whatever. Yeah, and he was great. I really enjoyed his performances, and really sorry to see him go. He'd done Casualty and the other stuff as well. He'd done other acting, and I think
he was in The Commitments. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
just a bit part, but I mean, I think he got a decent set out of that, talking about it as part of his stand-up routine.
I was just looking at some of his credits. He'd been in Miss Marple and other stuff like that. So, whichever way, he's one of those kind of people that whichever way that he touched your life, whether you saw him from his comedy, his stand-up comedy, or whether you saw him on the TV doing Buzzcocks, or whether you saw him in even my dad said how sad it was because he'd seen him in didn't he play a detective in something as well? He had his own series, didn't he, I think? And my dad loved that. It's
right.
So he was like kind of across generations. Quite interesting to see how he did affect people. So sad, whichever way you look at it, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
On the other hand, I've had quite a good week this week. Thanks for asking.
Well, I was going to get round to it, but since you offered it, that makes a change. You were quite grumpy when I spoke to you last week.
It was the parcel thing, wasn't it? It kind of got under my skin a bit. That one did really, but.
Well, you shouldn't put parcels under your skin. That's bound to happen.
They were only small parcels, and I've got quite baggy skin, so it kind of worked out all right.
Food parcels. Anyway, yes, from someone sadly passing away to new life.
Yeah, I got just a quick story. It's it's nothing really, but it's just that we're expecting a baby. Not me and Adrian, me and my wife.
I was going to say it's news to me.
Well, I just saw your shocked expression. I thought I'd better explain that one. In December, and I've got to the stage now where I sort of want to poke the wife's belly and get him to respond, kind of thing. And we were lying in bed the other night, and she was like kind of asleep, and I thought, I wonder if he's awake. So it's amazing. I don't know if you've ever done this, but you find where roughly where he is, and then start sort of just gently sort of think, oh, okay, there's his foot there, and I just like touch his foot, and he gives you a right kick back. It's so funny. And I just it's really nice to connect in that kind of way. But my wife's sort of lying there, and in the end, she's like started to giggle, and she went, "For God's sake," she said, "will you two just go to sleep?" Just how lovely
does he mean to go on?
The kid isn't even born, Adrian, and already
we're a
nuisance together. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's just lovely, and I'm going to try, and I'll report back. There's kind of all. It's really weird actually, because my wife became pregnant and I became invisible. You notice that like women talk to her and when's the baby due and all the rest of it, and they just ignore me.
Yes, but once the baby's born, I'm told by people who know these things. I don't have a child, but that suddenly, if you're out on your own without your wife with a child, instantly all the most gorgeous women flock to you. I mean, you're probably used to that anyway, a man of your stature.
I'm going to plead the fifth on that one, to be honest with you. Grounds I might incriminate myself, but yeah.
Yeah, just in case your wife's listening.
If you need me, then I'll be out with my son. All right, for the next 18 months. But no, it's interesting because people just like kind of don't talk, and all the stuff that you read online is. In fact, I found an article about five fun ways to interact with your unborn baby, and it's kind of written to the perspective of what a woman can do, and you kind of think guys are involved as well. But there's things like I do talk to him. I quote lines from films. I was quite impressed with the film Billy Liar, and I very often can be found shouting into my wife's belly, "A man can lose himself in London, lose himself." He doesn't seem to respond to that at all, really.
No, I'm not going to either. I think it's beneath both of us.
Yeah, but the one that I'm really looking forward to is playing peekaboo with a flashlight. So I'll give you more on that next week, maybe, if we do that one, because I've got a torch.
The mind boggles.
In the nightstand. It doesn't say where I've got to stick the torch, but I'm sure if I follow the instructions, it'll...
I'm not even going to go there unless you want an explicit symbol next to this podcast. Oh, I do like those jingles. Oh, Shane, just before we go any further, I just want to point out that you may be able to see some rosettes over my shoulder.
Yeah.
I'd like you to think, and I'd like anyone viewing this as well as listening, to think that those are numerous awards I've won for services to podcasting and broadcasting. Actually, it's my wife's horse riding activities that have earned her those rosettes.
I can't tell you.
So I'm a bit of a fraud.
There.
I know, it's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, that's very disappointing to know that was. I thought they were at least for hairstyle of the year. Or do they do one for glasses wearer? I quite fancy going in for that.
There is actually, I do remember, and here's this tells you how, it's going off topic, but it tells you how cool it is to wear glasses. One of them Spice Girl types, okay, we're going back a few years, was it Sporty Spice, actually wore some glasses with plain glass in, so she could enter glasses or specs wearer of the year.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah. So that it must be cool. I thought then, well, I'm up there with the Spice Girls.
I think I was in for, I don't know if I was nominated for the Male Award, I remember that year, but unfortunately I hadn't changed them for a couple of years and I couldn't find the venue, so it didn't work out for me. That one at all. Yeah, thank you very much. Anyway,
where's my symbol? Yeah.
Story number 2.
This is about, did you hear about pole dancing potentially becoming an Olympic sport?
Yeah.
I kid you not.
Yeah, I saw this in the week. It is pole dancing, is it then, that we're talking about?
Well, yeah, because I rubbed my ears for a moment and I wondered whether the newsreader hadn't done their homework and meant pole fitness, which is something slightly different. But no, it does seem to be pole dancing.
You are disconcertingly too aware of all the different... You do realise that, don't you?
It's my dark secret that I produced an item for BBC Radio Kent, probably, what was it, in the last year or two, where we actually had you wouldn't think you'd do this for radio, would you? But we actually had a poll assembled. You can't believe the health and safety forms I had to fill in. Oh, well, you probably can, having worked at the BBC, bless her. Anyway, so yes, we had a local celeb. I can't remember her first name, but she went. I'm guessing it was a professional name. She went by the name something like Polly Pole Dance.
Right.
I don't think she was christened that. I don't think her parents are Mr. and Mrs. Pole Dance.
Wow.
Well, that would be rather nice, wouldn't it?
And was she, what kind? I've got to choose my words carefully here. What kind of thing?
Yeah.
What did she? Where did she work? Where did she do this? Did she?
I didn't know where to look either. I had to point a mic at her.
Was she doing this as a sport, or was she doing this as an entertainment, or?
No, this was a fitness. So this is not seedy. Well, yes, but it wasn't seedy late night entertainment for men with grubby Macs. It was, to improve fitness, and boy was she fit, if I may use that phrase.
What do you think then? Because I'll be honest with you, I saw this story and I went, what? What are you talking about? And then when you look at hours and hours of video on the internet of women pole dancing, well, only in the realms of research, that's what it was for. I'm not some.
You've not been blocked by GCHQ or anything?
Not yet. I think I'm probably reaching quotas, I would have thought. But no, when you look at, you realise how much training is devoted to this activity, and B, how seriously it is taken very seriously by an awful lot of people who do it, isn't it? So
yeah.
And then you kind of think, what's the one called? Not the parallel bars. What's the one with the? It's the rings, isn't it? I always think how did that ever become a sport? The rings.
Mm.
And it's not that different from that, is it? Really, in a way.
I guess not. Although as I say, I was surprised it was pole dancing rather than pole fitness. But I'm waiting for. I don't know if you remember, if I may use the term. It was the title of the show, KYTV.
Oh yeah.
Going back some years.
Oh,
it was the early days of satellite TV, and it took the mickey, and it had this kind of tease, as we call it in the trade, where you're meant to stay tuned because coming up in the next half hour, and it was something like their sports that they had coming up was international caravanning, and also. Was it international or otherwise tiddlywinks competitions? So it makes me think of that.
We're not that far away from that, are we? No,
we're not. We're dangerously close.
All right, think of it more laterally then. If you think of what's the one where they forgive me, I'm not a great sort of athletics fan, but what's the one where they kind of go belting across the floor diagonally and then leap in the air and jump and all that sort of stuff? And the other one where they dance about with the ribbons and all that kind of thing. Look like they're making it up.
You're not speaking to an expert here either,
no,
but I know what you mean. I think we can picture it.
If you put pole dancing alongside those disciplines, would it look that out of place?
I don't think so. I mean, it might be commented on the first time, and then I think it would just settle to be part of the mix, wouldn't it, next time round?
The thing that worried me the most about the story when I read it was in the second paragraph. It said, along with dodgeball and arm wrestling, it's been awarded observer status. And I'm thinking, was I on holiday when dodgeball and arm wrestling got into the Olympics? When did that happen?
I dodged that ball. Yeah, exactly. What is dodgeball? Do we know?
Isn't dodgeball the one where, you have people on... You used to play at school when you hadn't got anything proper to do. We do it at our school anyway.
Which was about 5 years.
I spent about 4.5 years doing dodgeball on its own. Yeah.
GCSE.
You just sit in a sports hall and you have like 10 people on one side of the room and 10 people on the other, and you throw the ball as hard as you can and you try and hit somebody, and if they catch it, you're out, and if you hit them, they're out.
Right.
It is no more complex than that, but the Olympics...
Are we sure it's the same? Are you sure there isn't another definition of dodgeball that we're missing?
No, that's the one I think. Well, arm wrestling. I mean, we all know what arm wrestling is. How did that get in the Olympics? It'd be darts next in the Olympics. It's outrageous.
Do you remember, what was the sketch show? It had this kind of shaky animation. Was it Big Train?
The international staring competition.
Staring competition.
Yeah.
And they had was it Barry Davis commenting?
Yeah.
Oh, it's going. And of course it sounded authentic because he took it really seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was performing it.
He's blinked. He's blinked. It's all over. Yeah. You're not feeling the love for this, are you, at all? I can tell you're not.
Not particularly, but I thought it was a good yarn. I knew we'd get a few minutes out of it.
Do you know, it's really weird because I started off with this and I thought, I can't see it. But then the more I kind of compared it alongside what else they've got, you kind of think, well, actually, maybe, like I say, if they're gonna have observer status, which means it could be considered for the Olympics for dodgeball and arm wrestling, then why not?
No.
Wasn't what's the What's the one with the bikinis with the volleyball?
Volleyball, yeah, beach volleyball.
Yeah. Well, that isn't that. Did that get in or?
I saw some at London 2012. 6 foot tall Chinese women. I mean,
wow.
I don't know what they were eating, but I'll have some.
Wow.
I'm not 6 foot. It was quite something to see. So yes, that's an official part. So you can stop observing.
I always wanted the Olympics. I always wanted one of the years to add a bit of a twist to it all. Is do all the Winter Olympic sports at the Olympics, and all the Olympic sports at the Winter Olympics.
So bikini wearing on the slopes of that could be interesting.
Just to kind of add and the one that I invented, because I invented a sport, don't you? With a guy that I used to broadcast with.
Do tell.
He used to do all my travel stuff, and we invented a sport called motornastics. And essentially, what it is do you remember what was the thing Peter Purvis used to present?
It was motorbikes, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like a motocross thing, wasn't it? But they used to go. But we said, right, okay, so you'd have your motorbikes, but you'd go on like parallel bars and things like that. So it'd be gymnastics on a motorbike, motornastics. Well,
that's Cirque du Soleil, isn't it? Have you ever seen them? They do amazing stuff with motorbikes.
That's probably why they didn't pick it up. Yeah,
they have. They have a motorbike, 2 motorbikes riding. I know you were being somewhat tongue in cheek, but seriously, it's quite awesome to watch. And I don't use the A word, awesome, that often, except when I'm trying to sound 20 years younger than I am. But moving on, they're in this cage, and in front of your very eyes. This is not video. This is actual real time.
Yeah.
There are 2 guys. I think it's guys riding motorbikes across each other inside a sort of steel mesh cage, and they've only got to be slightly out and collide, and you are going to see a collision in front of you. Sadly, it didn't happen. No, happily it didn't happen.
Quite traditional, isn't it? That's just isn't that just the wall of death from the old circuses?
I suppose so. What, put on motorbikes instead?
Well, no, they used to do that on the motorbike.
Did
the wall
they?
of death.
Did they?
Yeah,
right. Okay. Well,
they'd be in like a big, like if you imagine a massive barrel. The size of a room, and you'd be at the top and they'd be at the bottom, and they'd like go around in circles, and then they'd get up onto the wall and they'd ride them. You never seen the wall of death?
I probably have. Now you mention it.
Listen, one of the weekends I'll hire a scooter, and we'll the Blackwall Tunnel. I reckon. If we don't do it, we'll get arrested trying. I think it'd be quite
absolutely.
Final story for this week then. Anyone who's ever tried to get a doctor's appointment will probably relate to this one. GPs are threatening to remove patients from their practice lists if they've relied on Dr. Google to find out what's wrong with them before they're... Do you know they don't like it, doctor? I don't know if you've ever done this, Adrian. You look up Dr. Google before you go and then rush into your doctor and proudly pronounce what it is that you think that you've got. They hate it. What they're talking about is striking people off their list now if they've been to Dr. Google. Have you seen this one?
I have seen this one. Have you actually experienced it yourself? I mean, have you gone in all swagger and downloads?
Yeah.
And I can imagine you could be quite a tricky customer.
I mean, I won't shout out now what I had, but
please whisper it in my ear. Really? No.
Yeah. But look, the cream, you've just put the cream on, and it honestly, it's fine. The swelling goes down, which is a bit of a disappointment.
Stop!
But yeah,
this is so end of the pier.
I have, and I went to the doctors, and because I think that's you see, I looked at it the wrong way. I thought that was your duty. That's your duty to go with as much information to the doctors as you. I was trying to, save a bit of time. Fortunately, I mean, the doctor. We've moved house since, and so we've had to move doctor. But the doctor I had then, Howard, was a really nice guy, and he kind of sort of said, leave the diagnosis to me in the nicest possible way. But it sort of slapped me down for it, kind of thing. But here's the irony: is that then. So I said to him, "What do you think it is?"
He goes on Dr. Google,
and he went on this. They've kind of got this wiki. Have you seen this? The internal wiki thing that they go on,
right?
and looked it up
They
online.
usually angle the screen away from me when I'm
Yeah,
at the doctor.
but that's why, because they want to tell you. They don't want you to read it first. They want to tell you. But I'm thinking, you've just said to me, "Oh, be careful, Shane. Don't end up diagnosing yourself or looking up online." And I go, "Oh, okay, doc, no worries. What is it then?" You go, "How are you spelling that? Yeah, what colour's the rash? And you're just like, oh wow." But yeah, looking at striking people off their list. That's how across I love the. Did you see the term that they coined for this? Cyberchondriacs.
Yes, I like that. I'm
Clever.
I'm fond of such things. Do you know what I think? My take on it is it's a PR thing. Do you know? I'm sure you've been told, which is why you've had such an elevated career. The way to deal with management is to make them think that your idea was their idea first.
Oh, okay.
Isn't it like that with the doc? It's all about PRs. Doctor, I know. You are, of course, the specialist here, but or you know your stuff. I just wondered, is it possible it could? I don't know. I'm being daft. Tell me I'm being daft. That sort of a bit of a Woody Allen approach.
So if you don't go in with the honest approach, which is to say, "Hello, doctor, I've got this terrible rash and I've looked it up online, XYZ," you should. That's where people are making a mistake. Do you think they should have said, "Oh, well, like you say, I know you're probably." Do you think it could be and present it to them as an idea?
Maybe that's my personal style, and maybe that's why I have so many ailments.
Yeah, I don't see anything. I would think that doctors would be saying, well, unless people are coming and saying they think they've got something seriously wrong with them and they haven't, but. To do a bit of research before you go, surely that you're taking it seriously then, aren't you? As a patient, you're doing your bit, aren't you?
But the point is, if you think you know everything from the internet, then why are you going to the GP anyway? There's a kind of implicit assumption if you're there with them. I suppose you could say, well, you can't do the prescription yourself,
right?
But I don't know. You've got to. They have actually done the homework. I used to. I think undervalue GPs. I've got an enormous amount of respect and sympathy for them, really. When you think theirs is such a static job and they've only got 10 minutes or so, if that, to deal with so many different conditions, and they're under the cosh like never before at the moment. Yes, they are paid handsomely, but I think they do work for it, and they do. They put 7 years hard labour into their studies before they get anywhere, really.
The thing that I always think, some of the things I've shown my doctor, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Do you know what I mean? So
well, I hope you wouldn't show me.
I
speak as your worst enemy.
And put your hand there. You think, oh no, wash it afterwards. Now, do you know? And oh no, you're right. I mean, they are. It's a bit like teachers, isn't it? I suppose. I tell you, here's the thing, though, Adrian. With all of this, is that if you've ever been unlucky enough to phone. Is it NHS Direct? Is it that where you phone up?
111.
Yeah.
Is it nowadays? No, that's wrong, isn't it? That's the non-emergency. You better get the right one. That's the non-emergency police.
Is it?
Yeah, I've got the wrong one.
Anyway,
I know what you mean.
We've only got about 3 numbers in this country, and that's too many, isn't it? We should just have one.
I can't hold them in my memory at once. I have to go to Dr. Google.
Doctor, please. Yeah. But no, if you go to NHS Direct or whatever the thing is, that's what they do. What do you think they're doing at the other end? They're not doctors that you're talking to. They're going through a flow chart of, is the patient bleeding? Yes, do this. No, do that. And it's a workflow, isn't it? That's all it is, really. But it's a computer program.
Or it says, is it a bleeding patient? Another bleeding patient.
The thing I always think, it's like this really complicated flow chart that starts off in it, and they ask you the questions, and depending on whether you answer X or Y, sends you in different directions, and you go down to the flow chart, and it goes all the way down through all the questions, and right at the very bottom it says send patient to A&E.
Yeah,
and that's it, because that's all they ever do. I don't know if you've ever been there, and you go through the whole thing. They'll go, you got to go and see a healthcare professional, and you think, well, did we really think that we were ever going to diagnose this over the phone?
They are a filtration system, aren't they? But you do, if they are concerned, and they will err on the side of caution, won't they? And I bet there's legal worries around that these days, which is a real shame.
That's the whole NHS now, isn't it? I mean, this whole thing here, the whole story of saying, oh, we're going to strike patients off if they use Dr. Google. this is the whole thing about A&E, is that people at A&E are frightened to say, actually, you shouldn't be here, mate. Go home, because you've only got a splinter in your thumb, and to be honest with you, you could deal with that yourself, because there is a fear that maybe they'll get sued or attacked or both, or what, you know what I mean? It's like you're right. I mean, there's that huge fear, and I don't blame them, because I would be frightened of that if I was doing that. But
yeah,
interesting. I don't know why they don't have their like the wiki that doctors use. Why don't they open that up to the public then? Are we too thick, do you think, to use that?
Yeah, I mean, they say knowledge is power, and the article I was reading, that, well, part of it is supposedly a fear on the GP's part of a loss of power. I don't know about that.
You're right, though. At the end of the day, GPs needn't worry. We're always going to need them, because they've got the prescription pad. So,
yeah,
you know, if you and a lot of people don't feel that they've achieved a good GP's appointment unless they come out with a prescription, do they? I mean, sadly, that's.
Yeah. Do you think that's changing? See, what I don't know is, I certainly feel I have much better, more grown-up conversations on the thankfully rare occasions when I have to go to the GP.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a dialogue between two people who respect each other. And I don't feel this top-down thing anymore. Now, I don't know whether that's because I'm older, and then that was going to happen anyway, or I've got a feeling the culture's changed. I'm not imagining that, am I? They don't do this "I am God" anymore.
Not as drastic. I have had doctors in it, because we had a doctor's surgery where there were about seven doctors at the practice, and unless you had a very serious condition or were elderly, you didn't get to choose who you saw. You saw whichever doctor.
Yeah.
So you couldn't say, I want to see Dr. So-and-so, but say, because that was reserved. And I think rightly so. I think that's a great idea. You know, if you've got a condition where you're seeing your doctor regularly and it's a serious condition, you want some continuity. You don't want to keep explaining for yourself from the start. And it depends who we got, really, Adrian. You know, sometimes you'd have a doctor and you'd think, oh, great, it's them. And then other times you think, oh, no, it's them. And they either hadn't got time to listen to you and, you know, were not really bothered. But and then other times, as you say, you know, you felt like you were having a real grown-up conversation. But yeah, I think you're probably lucky. Did you see the same doctor all the while then?
No, I'm at a group practice and it's a different one each time. And I'm convinced I never seem to see the same person twice. And I wonder whether there's quite a high turnover there.
Perhaps it's just the array of unusual conditions that you've got. They're always pleased to see you.
They call me Rainbow Lacey.
We love him because he really puts us to the test. We've never seen so many conditions on one man. Hey, listen, it's talking about time of your appointment, 10 minutes. It's time. The time's up. It's beating us again.
No.
Yeah.
No.
For another, it goes quick, doesn't it? For us.
It does. When you're having fun.
Shame it doesn't for
or you
everybody
haven't a clue what you're talking about. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Drags for the rest of the world.
So listen, I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll be back again next week with another podcast when we'll be telling you what we've been doing in the week, and also we'll be picking out some more stories, won't we, to entertain people with.
We sure will.
And until then, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye for now.